Okay, so good morning, everybody. I'll do one of those. What we're going to do today, which is going to be great fun, this week I'm teaching my husband James how to batik. To start off with, I just want to explain to you the image that we've chosen and how we got to this level and what we're going to do next. So I have a friend in Gambia who shares lots of photos of his area with me, and often I'll save them if I think they might be good pictures, because I want to at some point do some batiking of Gambia and raise some money for a family that I look after over there. But this was one of the pictures that I took from him. I've played around with it using filters that you can get freely on in apps and on the internet, and some basic sort of free graphic software. I've played around with the colours, played around with the shapes, put some filters on and things. And this for me I thought was a brilliant way for James to start, because although it looks quite complex, it's actually, from a batiking perspective, relatively simple when it comes to colour, and it's a great way to start learning how to use the janting well. So once I've chosen the image, and once I've played it through a few filters, changed the contrast, changed some of the colours, etc., and I'm happy with my image, I print it out. We have an A3 printer here, so I print out a small version. A4 is fine if you can't do A3. So then to scale it up, we use a piece of software that basically it's a poster maker. If you find a piece of software that enables you to make a photograph into a poster, that's the one you want. Double it in size. From this size, if you're going from A4, probably put it up 300%, and then you print them out and stick them together. The alternative to this way, which is the way I was traditionally taught back before printers, is to make a small line drawing. You can reference a photograph, or you can do it by hand, and then project it onto a flat white wall or a flat light coloured wall. Stick a piece of paper up on the wall to the size that you want the final image to do, and you basically trace it off onto the paper as it's projected onto the wall. But this is a much quicker, much more efficient way of creating a line drawing, and it gives you the ability to do a lot of the creative thinking before you actually ever print anything out to draw from. So once you've stuck the four pieces together, there is an overlap, so you have the opportunity to see quite easily how you can match them up. Once you've taped those over on the back and it's one piece, you then tape it down to a surface, or you can tape it down to a board, and you just stick the ends down so it won't move. It's going to be there for a fair amount of time, so you just want to make sure that one thing especially to do is just tape down where the overlaps are, because then you stop getting curls. And that should be enough, because we're now going to lay tracing paper over the top. I'm passing over to James from now on. He's going to be in the driver's seat, and the next thing we're going to show you is how to lay down your tracing paper and create your line drawing. So just before we start, I wanted just to explain a few things about this picture that attracted me to it originally, and the way that I've created it now, how it's perfect for batiking. It has some wonderful natural blends in it, which will be perfect when you put in the dye on. You'll have such fun. The palette is very limited. It's all within the same colour wheel, as in it's yellow through to red and then to a brown. So they're all within the same element of the colour wheel, so you won't have any problems with colours going olive, murky, not being what you think they are. And there are some fabulous, great black shaped areas within it. And black, for traditional batiking especially, I find is one of the key indicators that it is a batik. And so we've got some wonderful black shapes here, which we can play with. And what I can also do, which I think would be great in this batik, is show how you can outline and fill in, because a lot of people do outline their work and then fill it in with the colour. So I can show you how that works, as opposed to when you blend and pull information up, and then you have both skills that you can use. Finally, composition wise, perfect composition, two-thirds, a third, which is fabulous. Lovely balance of people that pull you into the centre, pull you round, give you an indication of exactly what's going on in the image without giving you too much information to deal with. This for me is an absolute perfect image to batik. But for this stage, what I'm asking James to look for is to find the basic key shapes within the image, put in some of the indicators of the lines and everything to give as much information as you can of the image here. Make decisions on whether you want to do all this lovely stuff, which is obviously the sand going backwards freehand, or you want to actually put in every line that's here and replicate that. So you make those decisions, make notes to say, must remember to do this on the back, and you can leave that without having to transfer it onto cloth. The key to this stage and all of it is shape. So every shape you draw and you put down should be a beautiful shape. You can accentuate things, you can flatten things, you can do whatever you like as long as they stay realistic. The shapes that are there need to be defined beautifully, and you need to consider not only this shape, for instance, or say for this shape here, but the negative spaces in between, and make these shapes as beautiful as possible too. So you're identifying different colours on the plan by an outline to a beautiful shape. So when you're creating your line drawing, the way I usually start is I actually define all the blacks. Blacks is a really good way to start this one because black is so dominant. Make all the lovely black shapes that you will create, because you'll be creating some of the coloured shapes as well. Put all the blacks in first, get happy with how they are, and then decide how much more of the extra detail you want to put into your colour, your line drawing, and what you want to either leave to do it within the batik or leave out completely. This is the time that you can decide what you keep in, what you don't. Bear in mind the birds and try and get a good composition with the birds that you put in, because you can add some if you wanted to, take some away. But really blacks first, and then progress on to making decisions about what other areas where there is a colour change that you need to actually put in as information to be able to do your batik from. More information rather than less. Sometimes I put too little information in and I get completely lost, but equally so sometimes I put way too much information in and equally get lost. There's a balance between what's helpful and needed and what's just unnecessary. You can put a shorthand on your chart, on your printout, to say I want to do these lines here. You don't have to draw all the lines in if you're happy to do them freehand. Okay, so one thing that you've missed are the darks that go through here. If you think about the process you're going to use, you're going to put the lights on first, and you're then going to have to wax all these shapes in and leave the shapes that you need for the darker. If you don't prescribe them into here, you're going to forget about them. If you don't want them there, that's fine, but I would say you need some of these lines in there to give some horizontals that will define and give the thing stability. So I would actually go back and just pick up on things like, remember this shadow here and that are connected. There's a shadow there, maybe you can just put a little bit that side, which will connect it up, and that looks fabulous in batiking, that you can actually then put things that are behind something else in. It really helps to bring it alive. You also need to check for complete shapes. You've got some incomplete shapes here which you need to go back and fill in. So I would actually put a little bit more detail in, and I would also make sure that you have things like here, look at it as a picture now as well, and go, I haven't got the C line in, so you actually need to make sure that you put this line in that goes across, because it's your horizon line, and then there's another one here which you can see. So you want to try and make some horizontals in this that make a landscape sit as a landscape, not just a piece of abstract. So one thing you now want to look at as well is actually look at it back as an image, not as just lots of abstract shapes, and make sure it makes sense as a landscape. So you need to make sure you've got horizons and things in. For instance, here there are some more details that you could put in. I would suggest you did, because then that will help define that man actually as having a body as opposed to who knows what shape that is. It just will help actually if you go back and think that's a figure. I now need to make that shape look more like a figure and less like part of just a black abstract space. So you put the meaning back into the landscape now. So you take it abstract and now you're now going to go back and make it make sense. Now you've got your cloth laid over your line drawing, you're going to transfer it onto the cloth. One thing just to bear in mind, just keep in your head and keep your photo referenced next to you, because where you have very light colours next to very light colours, you're going to want to make your pencil lines a lot lighter. They also don't need to be heavy because they'll get dealt with straight away. The darker lines, especially next to darker lines, make a little chunkier. You can be a little heavier with your pencil because they're going to need to last longer, and obviously because they're dark, any pencil line that might be left over won't show. So that's just something to bear in mind, and really it's just a sharp fine point, and you just transfer it over. For me, most boring part. So once you've found the right size frame, because this is going to be quite tight, as in the width of it is going to be just within the frame, start by putting it there on that side, tight up, because you are going to stretch it a little bit. So make sure you get it level. This side looks a little bit higher than the other. So you want to get one, I suppose one tip you could do is when you do it, you could just fold over a bit from the edge, iron in a line, and then you've got a proper line on it to work with. But so I start by putting one in the centre, and you know how to do this, don't you? One in the centre on each side, then in the corners, and then build out. And it needs to be taut, not tight.